President, you may be seated. The court is now back in session. As the chamber informed the parties and the public before our lunch break, during the afternoon session, we will start hearing the testimony of the witness TCW 609. Court officer, could you invite the said witness into the courtroom? Good afternoon, witness. You have been instructed by the court officer regarding the use of a microphone when you respond to questions put to you. When there is a question posed to you, please pause a little bit until you see the red light on the microphone before you start to speak. The AV booth will operate the microphone, so there is no need for your interaction with it. Witness, can you tell the chamber your name? Witness, good afternoon, Mr. President. My name is Sosi. Thank you. Questions. Besides the name Sosi, did you have any other names or alias? In particular, during the 1970 to 1979? Response. My other name is Sim. So, your name is indeed Sosi alias Sim. Is that correct? Response. Yes. Question. Can you tell us your date of birth? Response. I was born in 1956. I cannot recall the month, but the detail is on my ID card. and I was born in Tropang Minche village, Tekla commune, Prey Veng district, Prey Veng province. Thank you. Where is your current address? Response. I'm living at Old Sngood village, Ta San commune, Samlo district, Battambang province. Question. What is your current occupation? Response. I am a farmer. Thank you. What is your father's name? Response. My father's name is Haim Chia, and my mother's name is So Sia. Thank you. What is your husband's name? Response. My husband's name is Sotta. Thank you. How many children do you have? Response. I have 4 children, 1 son and 3 daughters. Thank you. Ms. Saucy, as reported by the greffier this morning, that to your knowledge, you are not related by blood or marriage to the 3 accused, that is Nuon Chia, Ieng Sari or Kisampon, nor any relationship to any of the civil parties who have been recognized by the trial chamber in this proceeding. Is that correct? Response. Yes, that is correct. Thank you. The greffier also reported that you already took an oath yesterday, that is the 14th of August 2012. Is that correct? Response. Yes, it is. Ms. Saucy, we would like to inform you of your right and duties before this trial chamber. As a witness, in the proceeding before the trial chamber, you can refuse to respond to any question or comments that would incriminate you. This is your right against self-incrimination. If you believe that your response or comment would put you under charge or prosecution, and as a witness, you must provide your testimony in the proceeding before this chamber, and you must respond to all the questions put to you either by the chamber or any of the parties, except in the case where you believe your response or comment would incriminate you. And you must tell the truth that you have known, have heard, have seen or experienced or observed directly regarding the events or facts related to the questions put to you by judges of the bench or by any of the parties. Do you understand that? Response. Yes. Question. Have you been interviewed by the representative of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges? If so, how many times and where? Response. I was interviewed by the work group at my village, and it was conducted at my house but I cannot recall the exact date. However, it is on the record of the interview. Thank you. How many times were you interviewed, if you can recall? Response: I was interviewed only once. Thank you. And before you appear before this chamber, have you reviewed or reread your written record of your interview that it was made with the investigators of the Office of the Co-Investigating Judges in order to refresh your memory? Response: the work group indeed coordinated me to read that written record of interview. Question: after you read that written record of interview, can you tell the chamber whether that record of interview, in order to refresh your memory, is consistent with your statements that you made with the investigator of the OCIJ? Response: I'd like to respond that I can remember things quickly, but I can also forget it quickly. Thank you. The chamber would like to inform the prosecution that during the proceeding of hearing the testimony of the witness, you will be given the floor first before other parties in this proceeding. Therefore, you may proceed. Vainhood. Good afternoon, Mr. President, Your Honors. Good afternoon, everyone in and around the courtroom. Good afternoon, Ms. Sorcia. I am from the Office of the Co-Prosecutors, and I have some questions for you. If any of my questions is not clear, or you don't understand, or if I speak too fast, please tell me so that I can repeat my question. I will now proceed with asking you the question. On 17 April 1975, what did you know about the event happened in Cambodia? Response: in 1975, in Phnom Penh at the time, Cambodia was liberated. Our soldiers actually liberated Phnom Penh city. And the fact that I knew about the liberation was that I entered the area near the vicinity of the stadium. I observed there were male and female soldiers, there were weapons, there were tanks, there were planes, and there were also people being evacuated from Phnom Penh. That was the last round of the evacuation. Thank you. let we go back a little bit. Before you knew that Phnom Penh was liberated, did you enter Phnom Penh on the exact day of the liberation? Response. On the 17th April 1975, I was with my arts group, and we actually left the area through Srai near Kampong near Spur, and we crossed the Vihia Sur road, and we stayed for 3 nights at Vijatra mountain. Question. In general, as I observed, when Phnom Penh was liberated, people were evacuated, as you said. What role did you play for the reason that you entered Phnom Penh while people were being evacuated? Response. I did not have any significant role. I was within my art group as part of the unit. We were told that after the liberation, the arts group would come to the propaganda department in order to serve. Question. Did you first enter the propaganda department, or did you attend any particular section? Response. It was the art unit known as S6. Question. You just said when you entered Phnom Penh, you stayed at Attara mountain. How many nights did you spend over there? Response. My group stayed there for 3 nights. Question. During the time that you stayed there, did you personally witness or see any of the leaders at the Attara mountain? Response. I'd like to go back a little bit. While we were on our journey and we reached the area near Spur, we were by our group, and I saw Kyo Sampon near Spur, that is near Sraiville area. He was in a small Chinese car, but it seems that he went before us, as we were in a track and we were also transporting the art performance equipment as well. Question. You said that you saw Kesampon in a car. Was he by himself or did he travel in a group? Response. He was in a car with 2 females, and the 2 females were the news reader on a mobile broadcast station. Question. In your response to my first question, you stated you saw people being evacuated out. And there was 1 line of people being evacuated. How many people did you see? Were there a lot of people when you saw them? Response. Yes, there were a lot. there were into tens of thousands of people. Question: were they being evacuated as in the direction preferred by those evacuees? Response: when I saw the evacuation in front of the stadium, people actually came from the riverfront, and as I observed the crowd of the people and the head of the art unit, that is Comrade Sao, he said that they were evacuated in the wrong direction. Question: when people who were evacuated, as you saw, and during that evacuation, did you know who was in command? Was it a civilian commander, or was it organized by the military commander? Response: I could not know whether it was organized by the civilian or the military commander. Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, I'd like to show the document with the E3/379. E in Khmer is 00294801. In English 003233242225. The French EIN is 00385196. President, you may proceed. Court officer, could you obtain the hard copy document from the prosecutor and deliver it to the witness? Prosecutor, before the OCIJ, you stated that you saw the evacuation and that you saw soldiers, but you did not know which division they belonged to. And at that time it was raining and it was dark, and there were weapons scattered around. There were military backpacks. Did you have anything else to add to that statement? Response: maybe it is not this is the written word, but it's not the spoken words. But what I saw were not the evacuation of soldiers. They were civilians, but there were Khmer soldiers, as I observed. Question: it might be my mistake. Let me repeat. As you saw, people were evacuated, but the question is actually who were controlling the people during this process of evacuation from Phnom Penh. And in your response, you said there were soldiers controlling the people. Do you stand by that statement, or you wish to amend it? Response. I'd like to clarify this point as follows. It was not the soldiers for the evacuation, and I personally did not know who actually controlled the evacuation. I only knew that people were evacuated in the wrong direction. Thank you. Question. As you do not agree that soldiers were evacuated, but do you agree or stand by your statement that at that time it was raining and it was dark? Do you stand by that statement? Response. Yes, I do. Now I'll continue with my next question. When you knew that the people were evacuated while it was raining and dark, did you know the women who just delivered babies and the pregnant women who were about to give birth? Did Angkar prepare any place for them? Response. I did not know regarding this point because at that time they only wanted people to move out of the city, that is to return to their native villages. So I did not know about the women who just delivered the babies or the pregnant women who were about to give birth. Question. Were you standing and watching the women who just delivered the babies in such a circumstance? Response. I did not see any pregnant women. I only saw people, some of them pushing a car or pushing a cart. Thank you. Let me move on to another question. You said that you were at Office S6 broadcasting news. The question is, people were evacuated while it was raining and it was dark. Did the radio broadcast about that hardship suffered by the people? Response. Immediately at that time, our mobile broadcast station only broadcast about the liberation of the city.
Question. On the 17th of April 1975, apart from the new coverage on the liberation-related issue, did the radio broadcast other news item? Response. No, it didn't. There was no broadcast on the evacuation. We could only broadcast about the victory, how the country was liberated. Mr. President, with your permission, I would like to read the excerpt from the statement she gave, which said that people were asked to raise white flag and that people were asked to surrender their arms and people had to raise white flag at houses. Do you still stand by that position? Counsel for Khieu Samphan. Mr. President, we would like a co-prosecutor to identify the document. I may repeat, we would like Mr. Co-Prosecutor to refer to the exact ERN page because we haven't got it yet. The President, thank you. In order to ensure that parties to the proceeding be abreast or kept abreast of the portion of the relevant question, co-prosecutor is instructed to give the exact relevant ERN numbers of the document. Prosecutor, thank you, Mr. President. The document I just showed is found under ERN in Khmer 00294802, English ERNs 00323326, French ERNs 00385197. Mrs. Witness, I would like to ask you this question again. Indeed, at that time, you indicated before the investigator that people were asked to raise white flags at their homes. Is that the correct account of what you stated before the investigators? Response. Yes, it is because when I was coming to Phnom Penh, I saw white flags were being raised at some homes, and also at the stadiums. Preparation was made to raise the flags. Question. Did you see people were raising the flags, or you heard that white flag should be raised through a radio broadcast? Response. To be sure, I came to Phnom Penh after Phnom Penh was liberated for 3 days, and I saw the white flags when I came. On the 17th of April 1975, I was not yet approaching Phnom Penh. I was staying at Chitra mountain. Question. I would like to repeat the question. Was the white flag raising part of the broadcast on radio? The President. Witness, could you please hold on? Counsel for Mr. Khieu Samphan, you may proceed.
Bonjour Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie. Bonjour également à Mesdames et Messieurs de la Chambre. Bonjour à l'ensemble des partis. Je viens malheureusement interrompre toujours pour la même raison, à savoir que lorsque nous avons deux intervenants khmérophones, il faut vraiment faire attention à bien marquer un temps d'arrêt entre le moment où on pose la question et le moment de la réponse. Assez clair. Je rappelle l'importance de pouvoir marquer une pause entre le moment où le témoin, j'ai l'impression qu'il y a quelques petits problèmes
អត់មានភាសាអង់គ្លេស
The President, there appears to be a problem that we have no English version to the English channel. Court officer instructed to coordinate it with the English, the interpreter's booth to ensure that the rendition is somehow fixed. The President, thank you very much for your observation. And as a Cambodian, we do not really have problem when we tune into the Khmer channel, listening to Khmer speakers. So we do not have translation problem with that. It is now clear that as counsel raised, co-prosecutor is advised to observe, pause, and witness at the same time is also instructed to do so. And by doing so, interpreters can fully render both the questions and responses. You may now proceed, counsel, or co-prosecutor, rather. Co-prosecutor, I would like to repeat that question I just put to you. During the period when Phnom Penh was about to fall, was there a broadcast or instruction for the Lon Nol soldiers to disarm or raise white flags? Response: I don't know about this. I may say I don't know. Question: during that period of time, who was in charge of the radio broadcast mobile unit? Response: I do not know who was in charge because I was in the arts section. However, the term mobile radio broadcast here is meant to serve the battlefields, to serve the soldiers. It was meant to encourage to help install or promote the high spirit of the combatants. Question: I would like to now move to another question concerning the propaganda ministry. Do you know who was in charge both administratively and technically? Response: in my ministry, there were Mr. Hunam, who was the chairperson, and after Phnom Penh was liberated, Mr. Tiu Ol was assigned as the assistant. I don't recollect the name of the deputy head. Later on, Mr. Tiu Ol also left the ministry, and I remained with Mr. Hunam. Question: when you worked at the Ministry of Propaganda, you noted that what was your observation? Did you see that former Lon Nol officials were being evacuated, or what was your impression concerning that time? Response: I witnessed at the Ministry of Propaganda the former technicians or operators for the radio station. They remained. They guided us. They took us to different places where recordings were kept or recorded, so we were introduced by the team. However, other senior officers were not seen, and I did not know about this because I worked in the office and did not move about places. Mr. Wayne Hort, Mr. President, with your leave, I would like to read the statement she gives to the investigator under ERN 00294801 in Khmer, English 00323325, French 00385196. At that time, you stated before the investigators that before you approached the propaganda ministry, the former artists had already been evacuated. Can you confirm what you stated before the co-investigating judges? Response: I may wish to emphasize that my memory sometimes doesn't serve me well because I responded to questions you put to me. I perhaps failed to respond to you the details. All the former artists had not been seen at that place except some former technicians. But normally at the working place, people only came when the working hour was on, and I didn't see them around anyway, except the 6 technicians who remained. Mr. Wayne Hort, thank you. Mrs. Fitness, I would like to proceed to another question. Was there any radio broadcast on the cooperatives, production, and digging or building canals, dams? Response: I was not the person in charge of radio broadcast. I was in the arts group. However, since we worked together, I knew that there was video broadcast on how to promote production and how to be self-sustained, self-reliant. That's part of the broadcast back then. Question: you say that you were in the same group and you were aware of the broadcast, the radio broadcast. My next question is, Was in the radio broadcast any information concerning the conflicts along the Vietnamese-Cambodian border or on Cambodian islands? Response. It is true to say that that happened, and I don't remember the exact date. We heard from the radio broadcast that the Vietnamese troop conquered Koh Tral or Tral Island. Question. While radio broadcast was on the attack on Koh Tral, was there any other news broadcast concerning the incitement, asking people to feel pity for the loss of the island? Response. It is correct that in the broadcast we heard that people were told to be vigilant, to have some pity for the loss of our island, and to have the idea of how to protect our country from being conquered. Question. You said that in the radio broadcast there was part that people were incited to have pity for the loss. So could you please elaborate further on that? Response. The radio broadcast was meant to educate people to understand the aggressive neighbors, and they were told to devote themselves to defend, to fight, to protect the country and territory. Question. Thank you very much. I will have my final question to you, and I would like then to cede my floor to my colleague. The last question here is, apart from senior leaders, including Mr. Khieu Samphan, you saw, did you see other senior leaders? Response. Apart from Mr. Khieu Samphan, I met with Son Sen at the stadium. I didn't meet him in person alone. I met him in a group. At 5 p.m. we reached the stadium, and he came to shake hands with us, and I gave statement to the investigators, but the record was not correct that I was accompanying him, but we met him there in a big group, not alone. Mr. Wayne Hort, in the record before the co-investigators, you said that you also had a knowledge of the presence of Mr. Ieng Seri at that location, and that you said Mr. Ieng Seri was working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Would you like to say anything about this? If not, I would like to end now. Response. No, I didn't see him. I knew of him. Mr. Wing, what? Thank you, Mrs. Witness. Thank you, Mr. President and Your Honors. I have no further question, and I would like to cede the floor to my colleague. The President, thank you very much. International Co-Prosecutor, you may now proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Your Honours. Good afternoon to the Chamber and the parties, and good afternoon to you, Madam Sarsiak. And let me say first, thank you for coming from such a long distance away to assist the court with your recollections of what happened between 1975 and 1979. Where I would like to start is by looking at the office that you worked in up to the 17th of April 1975. And you said to us that this was a radio station, and it was called, I think you said, S6. If I can start by asking you where S6 was located before the 17th of April 1975.
Response. S6 was located in the North Stung Trăng district. However, S6 was not the radio station. It was where the art group was located.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. And was the radio station itself located in the same place at Stung Trăng?
Response. When I first came, indeed I was a newcomer. We were then made to record songs that was sent to be broadcast. The new radio station was just established. The songs were broadcast in Hanoi.
Were there any broadcasting facilities in Stung Trăng itself? Was there any place in Stung Trăng where you could also broadcast?
Response. Mobile radio station was established, and I already stated this in my previous testimony.
Thank you. Do you know what year that mobile station was established?
Response. No, I don't. I was there in 1973, and I do not know about this.
Thank you. Apart from S6 and the mobile radio station, Were there other officers located in the same area?
Response. In the location, there was S6, K18, and B20, and Office 19. So these offices were located next to one another.
And could you tell the court what B20 was?
Response. Their office was for distributing foods to smaller units in my location.
Do you recall any senior people working at that location or near that location?
Response. I did not know where these uncles stayed, but I believe that they could have been working somewhere in the vicinity because it was their base.
And do you recall what K18 was responsible for?
Response. K18 was for women, the sewing group, and they also grew some vegetables. That's all.
Now you said to us that when you departed this area and you embarked on a journey towards Phnom Penh, that you, at one point, you noticed Mr. Q Sampan travelling in a car. How did you recognise Mr. Q Sampan? Did you know him from an earlier time?
Response. Yes, I did.
And could you tell the court where it was that you saw him earlier and what he was doing?
I saw him through the ceremony, for example, the New Year celebration, as he once in a while joins that ceremony.
And did you know what position Mr. Q Sampan held in that period?
I could not recall his position. I just cannot recall it. But I noticed that he was probably in charge of a section.
When you say you noticed that he was probably in charge of a section, what made you think that he was in charge?
as I understand, he was amongst the leadership. That's how I understand it.
Thank you. In that same period, you've mentioned earlier that you had met Hunim and Son Sen after the 17th of April. Did you know these men before the 17th of April? Or did you know of them?
I knew them, for example, Tiêu Ol in 1973. He went through my zone as I was in the East Zone. And he was also fond of arts, so he went to the district arts in Prey Vang, and that's how I knew him. As for Hu Num, I knew him when he was in charge of my ministry.
So just to make sure, the first time you met Hunim was after the 17th of April. Did I get that correct?
In fact, I knew him since I was in the jungle, but I became to know him clearly while we were at the Ministry of Propaganda after the liberation.
Thank you. And just one last question on these individuals. Did you also know Son Sen before the 17th of April?
I heard of his name.
Thank you. Now, if we can now return for a moment to the mobile radio station that you described. Do you know who was responsible or who did prepare the broadcasts for that station?
No, I did not know.
Were you able to listen to the broadcasts of the station before the 17th of April?
The broadcast distance of that mobile radio station was not far. The coverage was limited, so it was usually stationed near the battlefield for the broadcast. And the broadcast time was also limited, but I cannot recall how many times per day and how long per each broadcast.
Thank you. You told my colleague that the mobile station served the battlefield, and sometimes there were programs to encourage the soldiers and to help promote a high spirit. I'm just interested whether you and your colleagues were able to hear some of those programs where you were working.
When when we were close, or when we were within the range, we could hear the broadcast.
Thank you. And you've already said to us, I think, that on the 17th of April there was a broadcast announcing that Phnom Penh had been liberated, and you then left Stung Trung. How long was your journey from the B20 Stung Trung area to the mountain that you mentioned earlier?
We left on the 17th April, and we stayed for 3 nights at Vichatra Mountain, and 1 night it's a bit further down near Udong. We stayed in the rice field there for 1 day, and we arrived at the stadium around 5 p.m. So in total it was about 4 nights.
The location where you stayed for 3 nights, I just want to make sure that I have the correct location, and I'll try and pronounce it in English, and you tell me if I've got it right. Your statement refers to a place called Phnom Athru, and if I understand it correctly, this is near Udong. Could you tell me if I'm correct?
Simply put, it was called Vichatra Mountain, but the official and proper name was Atra Mountain. There was a pagoda on the top of the mountain, and there was one large lotus pond up there. I was not that familiar with the locality, but I was told by people that it was called Vichatra Mountain. And if you want to be really familiar, you should ask the residents in that vicinity.
Thank you very much. We're just trying to place the locations that you saw. And do you know whether this is near the town of Udong?
When I left, we left on foot. It took us quite a while before we reached Udong. But now I can no longer identify where it is or the whereabout, even the location where I stayed during the time in Phnom Penh. I cannot identify it now.
And so, is it correct that you left Stung Trung on the 17th of April, and you arrived at the mountain also on the same day, on the 17th of April?
I arrived at Prekadam. I was rather young at the time, but actually I was kind of had some difficulty with my eyesight, and usually I could not see well when it was dark. So I arrived at the Vichatra Mountain in the evening, and we actually crossed the river at the location where I was told it was called Prekadam, but I had this night blindness, so people actually took my hand, and then I got off the boat, and that was within the vicinity of Vihisu, as I recall it.
Thank you very much. When you arrived at Udong, Could you describe for the court what you saw? How many people were there?
When we were at that market, our group walked past the houses belonging to the Chinese and some concrete houses. People were seemed to be in a normal situation at the time. Thank you, counsel and witness. The time is appropriate for a short recess. We will take a 20-minute break and return after at 3 p.m. Court officer, could you assist the witness during the break and have her return at 3 p.m.
សូមអញ្ជើញក្រោកឈរ